Newcastle United 2, Tottenham Hotspur 1, and I'm going to break down everything we learned from that game, giving you a neutral perspective, talking a little bit about Newcastle, then a little bit about Spurs, then a little bit about Newcastle again, then a little bit about Spurs. And it was a game where Spurs had a lot of possession, and I think that was Newcastle's game plan, like they did when they previously met. Let Spurs have the possession and then hit them on the counter, and that worked for Newcastle because at the end of the day, I think that Spurs had a lot more of the ball. I think there was a particular period in the second half I was thinking, how have Spurs not scored? I think Brennan Johnson was fantastic for Tottenham, made such a good impact. But Tottenham were not clinical. Newcastle won that game because they defended better and they were more clinical. Did Tottenham have more of the ball? Were Tottenham on top of the most of that game? Yes. But to win games, you need to put your chances away and you need to defend well. And what we saw from Newcastle was an absolute team performance where they're putting their bodies on the line. I think Dan Burn, I know we got the own goal, was just everywhere. I mean, Tottenham had 20 shots. The amount of shots that was blocked was insane. Tottenham had 12 corners. But they limited Tottenham to 2 chances despite how much of the ball they had. And when they got the ball, they hit Tottenham on transition and they were clinical. What you got in Harvey Barnes is one of the most clinical players in football, and Isak, his finishing is very clinical. And I knew that this game was going to go either way. I think 4-0, 6-1, Tottenham don't have good luck at St James's Park. And I think had Solanke been there and Brennan Johnson's good crosses going into the box ended up on Solanke's feet, maybe it would have been a different game for Tottenham Hotspur. But I'm going to say this now. Do not write off Newcastle United. Now, I don't think Newcastle United were at their best. It's very obvious their build-up and playing out from the back and possession play wasn't as good. But no Botman, no Shaw. I made that excuse for United when we didn't have Martinez and Varane. So it's only fair that I give Newcastle that excuse there. But I predicted Newcastle to finish 5th. Tottenham fans are going to be upset, and rightly so. But Tottenham fans and Newcastle fans, I predicted Newcastle to finish 5th in my predictions video. To be honest, I thought Newcastle were going to sign Gay in a right winger when I did predict them to finish 5th, so maybe I will put Newcastle down to 6th for my predictions post-transfer window. But people sleep on Newcastle and the quality they've got. Harvey Barnes, clinical. Anthony Gordon, top-class player. Isak, world-class player. Bruno Guimaraes, world-class player. Joelinton, beast of a player. Tonali back. Livramento, Lewis Hall, 2 great young fullbacks as well. Sven Botman, when he's back on it, good player. Shaw, one of the most underrated players in the league. People don't realise that Newcastle do have a very good team and a very good squad. And while Tottenham fans are going to be annoyed, 1 draw, 1 loss, 1 win, I do think you've got to realise that Tottenham is a good team. And for the most part, that Newcastle's a good team. And for the most part, Tottenham on top of that game. I do think had Solanke been on the pitch with the balls that Brennan Johnson was putting in, it could have been a different game. I do want to talk about Brennan Johnson in a second, but I want to talk about Harvey Barnes first and a couple of Newcastle players first because they did win the game. But I noticed that Newcastle played a very similar sort of 5-4-1 deep approach to how they did against Tottenham last year. And I think what they did was they were just compact, they were narrow, they were making it difficult for Tottenham, and Tottenham didn't, score their chances. Tottenham had a lot of freedom down those wide areas, particularly Brennan Johnson. Newcastle were very compact, but they weren't being clinical or making the most out of it in sort of those central areas. And that's what hurt Tottenham. Maybe Solanke getting on the end of the box, having the poacher's instinct could have made a difference today. And I think Tottenham played all right. I don't think Tottenham played particularly bad. They were very good. Brennan Johnson was causing problems. They played all right, but Tottenham were not clinical. And then they switched off in defence. They were not clinical. They switched off in defence. And when Manchester United lost 2-1 last week to Brighton, I said Man United didn't play bad. Man United didn't play bad, but we wasted our chances, which we could have easily won that game if we put our chances away, and we fell asleep and conceded one of the most embarrassing goals ever, leaving 3 Brighton men unmarked at the back post. And I don't think Tottenham are bad. I just think that Tottenham switched off and didn't take their chances, and I think you have to give credit to Newcastle with how well they defended, how good they were off the ball, the character, the ground coverage. Joelinton was giving everything. Bruno Guimaraes, you can tell he loves the club. He was giving everything. There was character there by Newcastle. They were fighting for that game because Newcastle was missing their 2 best centre-backs. They don't quite have that quality and build-up out of the back, but they were fighting for that win. And Newcastle got 3 wins and 1 draw and 4. I don't think Newcastle have played unbelievably well. I've seen Newcastle play a lot better than they have. But I think results-wise, to go into the international break with 3 wins and 1 draw in 4 games, I think if I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be very happy, particularly beating a team like Spurs, who I predicted to finish 4th this season as well. But before I talk about Brennan Johnson, I want to talk about Harvey Barnes, because Harvey Barnes had his injury troubles last season, but when Newcastle signed him, I always thought it was going to be a very good signing. I'm surprised that Tottenham didn't actually look at this guy, or did they look at this guy? He's, I think Harvey Barnes is a likeable player. I think he's a good player, and I think he's a good outlet to have. Now, I do think that Newcastle need an out-and-out right winger, whether that's Anthony Elanga. We can do a video on that, because you do put 50 million bid in, which is ridiculous. He's not a 50 million player, but he's a good player. Madueke, I thought would have been unbelievable for Newcastle. I think Harvey Barnes is a good player, and there's no doubt about it. He's direct, he's unpredictable, and he can be lethal. He's a player that can dribble 1v1, that can carry the ball, that can pass the ball. He has output. And when Newcastle signed Harvey Barnes, I said, you might have St. Maximan that's all this flair and dribble, but St. Maximan had no end product. Flair, dribble, exciting player. You know, like Adama Traore's dribble can be exciting player, but the end product is what you need. When you play for a top team, and if Newcastle want to become a top team, and you want to win trophies, at the end of the day, it's end product. Look at Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland could have 7 touches in a game and he can get a hat-trick. I think he played 4 passes and got 3 goals the other day. It's end product, and you need players with end products. And Solanke will be that for Tottenham. Jota does that for Liverpool because Nunes isn't clinical. Jota does it. Trossard's been coming off the bench and doing it for Arsenal. All the top teams have an end product player, and I think you get that in Harvey Barnes, someone that can come off the bench and score and influence the game, someone that can start, play across the front three, but is particularly good on the left when he can cut in his right foot. He's got a wonder of right foot, and he's a clinical player. And I compared him to Josh, and I compared him to Trossard, even though he's better wider than those players, because he's someone that once Newcastle get their number 1 right winger, he's someone that would come off the bench when you need a goal, and you feel like you know he's going to get a goal. You know he's going to make an impact. He is that kind of player. And another player that makes a big impact off the bench and almost seems like a different player when he comes off the bench is Brennan Johnson. Brennan Johnson, when he starts for Tottenham, never catches my eye. Brennan Johnson, when he comes off the bench for Tottenham, it's almost like he's good every time he comes off the bench for Tottenham and puts in a good performance. Or is that just me? Last season, Brennan Johnson ranked 2nd for goal contributions off the bench, or goals off the bench. He got a lot of assists last season. I think he actually ranks 3rd for assists per 90 or something as well, or 4th, or something like that. But I can't remember. So he was ranked high for assists per 90 last season. He forced the down by an own goal. He came on and he created things. What Brennan Johnson can do is create goals. Brennan Johnson is inconsistent. Brennan Johnson seems better coming off the bench. But there's no doubt in my mind there's a good player in Brennan Johnson that can make an impact. I think that there's a player there that Tottenham fans should believe in. It's just his inconsistency. But when he comes off the bench, he seems to be a bit of a game changer. And I think when there's so much space out wide, which Newcastle left because they were very compact, Brennan Johnson was causing a lot of issues. Newcastle defended well, but that second half, Spurs were overloading the attack. That second half, Spurs were putting Newcastle under so much pressure that it felt like Spurs were going to win the game. And then Newcastle hit them on the counter-attack and took their chance. Spurs were overloading that. They were completely attacking Newcastle second half. And Brennan Johnson was putting in these crosses. He obviously influenced the goal. He's unpredictable. His outlet pace wide completely changed the game. And I thought he was Tottenham's best player. But Newcastle defended well. And I saw this tweet from Tom Talks 2 saying, massive shout to Dan Burn. We all know he has his flaws, but the Newcastle defender was absolutely colossal today outside of his own goal, which of course was far from great. But he put in a shift. The amount of blocks Newcastle defenders made. It was block shot here, block shot there. I thought Newcastle gave absolutely everything today. Going in, Joelinton and Bruno Guimaraes. I think Newcastle have a very good core on Joelinton, Bruno Guimaraes, and obviously Tonali coming back in. You've also got Willock, who I really rate. He's a bit of a powerhouse. He can carry the ball. He can burst those sprints of energy coming in as well. But I just think Willock's legs have absolutely given up. But, you know, they've got absolute warrior sort of beast mentality players in Joelinton and Bruno Guimaraes. I thought Livramento had a decent game. I think Tottenham, they caused him problems at times, but I think for a 21-year-old, he's very solid, very comfortable on the ball, good with his feet, able to play out from the back, dealt with Kuleveski well, did well in his 1v1s, defensively improving. I think he deserved his England call-up, and I think that Newcastle got a good player in Livramento. I thought for Tottenham, Dragusin impressed me. I thought he had a better game than Romero. I like Romero. I rate Romero. I think he's a very good player. But I do think that Romero was caught out today. Maybe that's because he's playing on the right side of defence. So maybe that's because he's playing on the left side of defence because Dragusin was going to play on the right. Maybe elements of Van der Ven you did miss. But I actually thought that Dragusin had a very good game. I think he was playing against difficulties of Isak, Gordon, Barnes. I thought his box defending and his physical domination was good. I thought particularly in the first half, he did really well. We made that really good last-ditch tackle, made a monster of a challenge, clean tackler, won back the ball, didn't seem to panic, looked very composed. And for a guy that hasn't got many minutes since obviously coming to Tottenham, I thought he was very composed. I thought he looked very physically dominant. I thought he looked very, very comfortable. And I thought that he had a decent game, if I was going to be totally honest. But Tottenham fans and Newcastle fans, let me know your thoughts down below on the match. I just want to make it short and sweet because the Man United match kicks off in 5 minutes and I have to go and do my watch along now. So I do apologise. I didn't get into as much detail as normal, and because I normally try and spend an hour after the game researching before I make my videos, but I have to rush off now. But let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. See you next time. I will be live on Alice Talks Football doing the Man United Liverpool watch along. Bye.